Now we're going to talk about statistical process control. Statistical process control is a very important tool for measuring quality. Okay, basically the goal here is to take a sample of my product. It could be measuring something that I'm using to understand quality, right? It could be the height, the weight, the distribution, the time, whatever it is, right? And I'm going to take a sample and I need to find out if the variation that is on that sample, right? I'm not going to have all the same observations all the time. It's going to be variation, so every observation is going to be different. So I want to look at that variation and find out if that variation is normal, it's what's supposed to be doing, and if it's so, that's what you call normal cause variation happening. Or if there's something special going on, if the variation is too high, or if I have one or two observations that are too far away from the mean, that tells me, if I find that thing happening, it tells me that a special cause variation is happening, okay? And that's the goal of the statistical process control. So very exciting tool that we're going to learn now, and you guys are going to be able to do that. So it's called statistical process control. Here we have a measuring equipment. I kind of already explained the goals. Here we have some basic ideas. You guys can read it with a little more detail. But the statistical process control chart will look something like that. So imagine that every dot there, these dots here, are the mean or the range of a sample that I collected. So in this case, I'm measuring something, right? Could be how many milliliters I have in a bottle or something, right? And then I'm collecting data of 15 different observations. So I took, let's say, a sample of 5 observations 15 times, okay? And let's say that this is the mean of each one of my samples, okay? And you can see that I have some kind of references here that we're going to learn how to calculate. The upper control limit, the lower control limit, and the central line. Okay, so remember when you talked before about being on target. So target now will be the central line. We talked about, okay, we cannot throw the darts too far away from the mean, and there's should be a line there to say, okay, what is too far away, and that line is going to be about 3 standard deviations higher or lower, right? Plus or minus, right? Because we know, and I explained on the previous video, that if it's more than 3 standard deviations from the mean, it's telling me that it's very unlikely that it's only normal cause variation happening. So it is probably because a special cause variation was happening, okay? So here I can see that all my lines were kind of, mean centered, right? They go up and down. There's some variation occurring, but none of them was more than upper or lower than the lower control limit. So what does that tells me? That tells me that the process is under control. Okay, so if all the observations are within the limits, is the process under control? If I have some observation, or at least one observation sample, right, that goes outside the control limits, it means that the process is not under control. And not under control means that there's a special cause variation happening, and I need to stop the process and take a look at and see what's happening. Is that the material that I'm using, the method, the equipment, or the person that's operating, or the product? What's going on that's generating that variability, okay? So now we're going to look at a few different situations. Imagine again we're collecting data, right? We're collecting samples, and we expect the central line to be here. This is the upper, and this is the lower control limit, right? And we collected a sample, and the mean was here. Okay, so the mean was here, was between the limits. So I still consider that sample could be just normal variation occurring, because that's my normal curve. That's why I expect the distribution to be. So in a distribution like this, if I collect the data here, right, it is high, but it's still likely that this comes from this distribution. Okay, I took the second one and it's here, so even more mean center. So the likelihood of this coming from this distribution is very, very high in this case, even higher than this case, right? But now I collected data and the sample was here. So I know that it's very unlikely that this sample here mean is actually coming from this distribution, right? And that's what I explained before, just with the histogram and nicer drawing so you guys can understand, right? So if it is here, very unlikely that comes from this distribution, it is probably because a special cause variation occur. So what do I do when I find out that a special cause variation is occurring? Stop the process, go figure it out, okay? Go figure out what's going on and why there's a problem, because it means that my process is not under control. When outside the limits, the process is not under control. I need to stop, figure out what's happening, because I'm going to cause a lot of quality problems, okay?